One cool thing about my job is I get to meet a lot of other business owners. And it's kind of cool because when you own a business, your peer group is other business owners. And eventually, over time, you just get to meet more and more people. But it's kind of cool for me because I work in restaurants and bars. And restaurants and bars can have, hundreds of customers or thousands of customers, especially if they have like a concert venue attached to it that can bring people out for special events. So this has kind of enabled me to learn and meet some of the biggest business owners in my city, or the business, like the most popular established places. And so I can kind of learn from them and ask them questions and stuff. And so oftentimes when I'm working, they have to come in and unlock the door and turn off the alarm code. And if it's during the day, they might be hanging out doing paperwork or something while I'm working. So we'll get into conversations and I can kind of like connect to them and ask them questions. And if they're a lot older than me, I can, or if they've been in business a lot longer than I have, I can kind of bounce ideas off of them and get their opinion on different things. So that's kind of a cool, unique thing that I think I get to do in my business that maybe some people might not be able to do if you own like an online business or a retail store where you're dealing with just like regular consumers. But I'm in this unique position where I get to work with other business owners and sometimes spend a lot of time with them. So anyway, I was at this very prominent place in my city that has a concert venue in it. And I can't really say what the name of this place is just because they do have so many customers that go there, and I just don't want to, mention their business. But I was talking to the guy that runs the place, and he was telling me about how they use debt and they leverage themselves as much as they possibly can so that they can build their business as big as they can. So they have like a whole bunch of different places. I know that they have two places for sure right across the street from one another, and I think they have like a couple others. But what he was saying is that they leverage themselves to the gills. They get as much money as they possibly can, spend that on their business, and then try to get their business to bring in as much income as possible so that they can make those payments. And then everything that they make after that is kind of like their money that they get to keep. And I didn't even know anything about leveraging or using debt in a business because my business is just so small and it's just a cleaning company. It's just like a service-based business. So a lot of the capital invested in my business is just like personal capital and effort and, using my own time and energy to get things done. I didn't have to borrow a whole bunch of money. So it's like a new concept to me. And I've always been kind of like afraid of debt because I've been a big Dave Ramsey fan for so long. And he's just saying that debt is dumb and you're going to get yourself into a big hole. So my thought was just stay away from it. But after talking to this guy and thinking about it, I'm like, there's some like really big businesses that seem to use debt effectively. There are also some really big businesses that use debt and then they end up going out of business after a while. So, it's every situation's different. But anyway, it got me thinking about how to use this tool. And one interesting thing is, this is kind of obvious, but business is just a collection of skills. Like being good at business is just being good at a bunch of little tiny skills. And I think managing debt and managing finance is one of those skills. And the way I like to use skills, one way I like to learn skills, just like I showed you guys in my video about how I got my motorcycle, is to start small. Go as small as I possibly can, something where I kind of feel goofy for being so small. Like my ego is a lot bigger, where I think like, oh, I should be able to take on this giant project. But I don't want to do that with dangerous things like motorcycling or with debt. I want to, scale it back where I'm like, okay, I know I can manage this, even though it's a small amount. So I think my first credit card was like $200 limit or $500 limit, where I was like, I feel dumb for having such a small limit, but I know I can manage it and play around with it and figure it out. So, I think the reason I want to mention that is because I've talked to a lot of people when they ask me how to start a business. One of the first questions is like, well, how do you get the money to start? should I go get a loan, or should I get a grant, or should I get investors? And I think that it's easier to spend money than it is to make money. So I try to tell people not to use debt when you first get started, because you need to learn how to run that business in that industry. And once you have some skills and you know how to use the money, that's when you can start using money from other sources. But if you don't know how to do that, you're going to blow money on dumb things and you don't even know that they're dumb. You're going to buy things like marketing and just spend way too much and overdo it and not be able to recoup those costs, for example. So, anyway, basically, those are all my thoughts on how I started avoiding debt, and then what kind of got me thinking about it and thinking about how it's a skill and how I need to learn that skill. So I want to tell you now how I've used debt a couple of times as leverage to really help build up my business. One of the first big things that I bought was a truck, and I still wanted to be small with it because I didn't want to get myself into too much trouble. So I've already talked to you guys about how I bought my van, but this is kind of how I buy everything on credit when I do use credit. I found a truck that was a good deal. It had these big blue flames on the front of it, so it looked really stupid. So I was able to get a really good deal on it, and I think it was a $4,000 truck or something. It was a Dodge Ram 1500. And the reason I needed it is because I was doing a lot of window washing at the time. I didn't have any way to haul my ladders around and to get to job sites, Before that, I had this Chrysler New Yorker, kind of looked like a gangster mobile, or one of those big boats. It was like a 1990 something with big dents in the side, and it looked really bad. I'd hang my ladder out the window as I'm trying to get to these jobs, and my customers just, I don't know what they thought about it, but I probably didn't look like the best character pulling up in that thing. But my grandparents gave it to me, it was free. But anyway, so I needed a truck so that I could actually go do a lot more jobs and get further, travel further distances, and so I could work more frequently, because sometimes I'd end up borrowing a truck from Home Depot, or I'd go to the rental car place and rent a car for a couple of days, rent a truck for a few days. It was just too expensive, but I didn't have any options, so that's what I had to do when I first started. So anyway, I get to the point where I'm like, okay, if I buy a truck, this truck's gonna make me more money than what it costs. So I found that truck. It's $4,000, and I knew that I'd be able to pay it off soon. I talked the guy down, got the deal as low as I possibly could, and then I had a down payment of maybe $2,000 or something. And so when I bought this truck, I only owed $2,000 on my loan, but the truck was worth $4,000. That way, if anything happened, I could just sell the truck and walk away and not be stuck with this debt. And I wanted an asset attached to the debt, and the asset's valued more than the loan. And then as soon as my income did go up, I threw all that extra income right at the truck immediately. I didn't go out and borrow any more money. I didn't do anything. I just laser focused on that truck, wiped it out. And then, I did the same thing with my van. Buy an asset that's worth more than the loan that I have on it, still keep it super manageable, super easy to pay off. And then as soon as I got it, my income went up, because now I'm able to go out and do floor jobs, which I typically only would do window jobs in the truck, because there's a lot of different reasons, but a lot of the equipment's a lot heavier, and it's a pain to lift it into the back of the bed of the truck, and then it would rain a lot because I'm in the Pacific Northwest. So anyway, I get the van, my income went up, and then I throw all of my extra money at that van until it's gone, and that way I can manage it, a lot easier. And so I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was telling me how he had to go get tires for his car, and he didn't have enough money for it. It was $1,000, so he had to go to the car place, borrow money for tires, and then he's just making them a payment for over 2 years on these tires. It's $1,000, and I'm like, that's not how I would do things, and that kind of worries me, and that's why I want to talk about this, because I see a lot of people they use debt for consumption, they use debt for vacations, they use debt to buy TVs, or even things they need, like car repairs, or some people borrow money to get surgery for their pets or something. But there's no asset attached to that you can sell. You know, you're not going to take the tires off of your car and sell those tires to get out of debt. And here's the reason why I think that you need to pay off your debts as quick as possible, and why I put such a big emphasis on paying off my debts. Every debt that you have increases your monthly expenses. You know, you have to service those debts. You have to make your monthly payment on them. And I know that you can have a minimum payment, but that minimum payment is still there. And one of the main things that I want to do is keep my expenses as low as possible and my income as high as possible. That way I have like a huge margin there that I can throw at future investments and throw savings and, you know, grow my business. So if I have a whole bunch of payments on all kinds of things that are going down in value, that adds a lot more risk to my business. If I have a slow time, if I lose a customer, if I get hurt, if anything happens at all, my income can go down, but my debt payments aren't going to go down. You know, so I want to have a giant margin where I'm making a lot more than what's going out, just for safety. And I've already talked to you guys about this. I don't live a very lavish lifestyle. I don't have expensive house payments or expensive anything. And a part of that reason is because it lowers my risk. It's not because I can't afford it or don't want to have nice things, but it increases your risk when you have a whole bunch of payments, and it increases your stress level because then you have to constantly grind. And I don't mind constantly grinding, but I want to feel like I'm making progress, not just throwing money in a pit trying to catch up all the time. So, but I think borrowing money can be a great thing. You know, if you put money on real estate, or buy some real estate on debt, put your business in there, and then as the income comes in from that business, you can pay off that real estate and own more and more of it. I think that's a great thing to do. If you want to get into a bigger business where you need to borrow money in order to get set up, you know, I think if you're very careful and you have some experience, it could be a good way to go. But I think for the average person, I think you want to start out as small as possible, because you're not used to managing money in giant increments. You know, if you're only making $50,000 a year or $75,000 a year, you're not going to be used to, you know, throwing around $30,000 here and there for different things. And when you get into business, if you get a big SBA loan or something, you can put yourself into a big problem because you don't have that skill that you need at that time. You need to snowball up to it and get used to managing money in bigger and bigger increments. So, you know, it's kind of funny because I've had some friends tell me, like, dude, we should start a business because my idea is bigger than your idea, and we could go really big and do it a lot bigger and be a lot more successful. And you kind of have to realize, like, well, dude, if you're only making $50,000 a year and you're an employee somewhere and you've never, you know, had everything on your shoulders, and you've never had to be a leader where everyone's depending on you solely, and where all the debts are on you, and where all the income is dependent on you, it seems a little bit weird for you to say, jump onto my idea because I'll do it bigger and better than you've done it, when, you know, I've had a small business and I've been slowly snowballing it up to a point where my income's a lot larger than the average income. And I've been able to manage debt that's probably bigger than the average person has to deal with in any given period of time. And I think that it's that snowballing thing upward. Whereas if you get this idea, I'm just gonna have a big business, I'm gonna quit my job, borrow as much money as I can, use leverage, and do some sophisticated things with debt, you know, I think that you're going to quickly find yourself into trouble because you're not going to know how to bring that money in. You're not going to know how to use the debt. You know, think about people that win the lottery and they just blow through $1 million in a year, and then all of a sudden they have like $2 million in debt because they were borrowing and they didn't know how to manage that money. And you can think about times when, I know I've been in this situation, I'd get a tax return when I was younger, not even know what to do with the money, and end up spending it on who knows what. You know, you get $2,000 or $3,000, and before you know it, it's just gone. And so you definitely don't want to borrow money from the bank and then blow through that money where it's just gone, and then you still have to make those payments. So I think there's that Kruger, the Dunning-Kruger effect. And the Dunning-Kruger effect is where you think you know a lot more than you actually do know. And the people who know the least amount of subject actually think that they know the most about it. And they think that they're a lot more sophisticated. And that's the conversations that I feel like I've been having, not lately, but over 7 years, I've had people talk to me about business, and where they're like, dude, you should just leverage money. You should do this. You should do that. And it's like, cool, but you have a day job. You've never run a business. You don't know what it actually takes. And if you want to go out and borrow a whole bunch of money to start your idea when you don't have any experience managing large chunks of money, that's that Dunning-Kruger effect, where you think that you can manage it. You think you know what's going on, but you don't. And so that's how you get into big trouble. So anyway, I think, start out with a small amount of debt. Try and manage it well. See if you can buy something that actually increases your income, and then see if you can use that increase in the income to pay it off as fast as possible. And then you have this asset still that you can keep using to generate an income, and then do it again. Buy something a little bit bigger. Buy something a little bit bigger. So I told you guys that I just paid off, well, I didn't tell you how much I paid off, but I paid off a lot this year. And then I went out and I bought a brand new Chrysler 300 for some certain reasons. I needed this car for things, and I wanted it, but I kind of needed it too because it has all-wheel drive and I can get around in the winter. But it's a $30,000 car, and I use the same method where it's like I have the income to support it, I have a big down payment to throw at it, and I can easily manage this $30,000 thing, and it's only going to take me 2 or 3 months, and I'll be totally out of debt with that. But now I'm at the point where I can manage a $30,000 debt load and just wipe it out very quickly. And I feel like I have the experience and skills now that, if my income does go down, or when it goes down, I don't know, I can't predict the future. I feel like I could adjust my consumption needs for my business and not make investments when it's not the right time. If that makes any sense. Like, I know when to borrow money and when not to borrow money, and how much I should borrow. And because sometimes banks will just throw money at you if you're qualified for it, but you kind of have to know the best strategy to use that money. So anyway, there's a lot of ways to figure out how to get more credit allotted to you. By making your payments on time, by keeping your debt to income ratio really low, by having a good credit score, you're going to be able to get more and more money handed to you. But you have to know how to use that money when you do get it. So anyway, I'm big time rambling here again. But if you want to do what you want, when you want, how you want, for who you want, how much you want, subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you guys next time.